Have you ever said yes and regretted it? Have you bought something you didn't need? Or found yourself doing a favor you didn't even want to do? Maybe you weren't just being kind. Maybe you were persuaded. In this video, we will delve into one of the most transformative books on human influence. Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion, by psychologist Robert Cialdini. But beware, this is not a video about sales or manipulation. It's about freedom of choice. It's about how awareness of the invisible mechanisms that influence us can set us free and bring us closer to what truly matters, our purpose. Robert Cialdini is a social psychologist, emeritus professor at Arizona State University, and considered the world's leading expert on persuasion. But what made his work so special was not just the theory. Cialdini did something radical. He infiltrated, undercover, sales, charity, and marketing organizations to observe how people were persuaded in the real world. The result was the book Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion, published in 1984. And even decades later, his work remains a must-read for psychologists, advertisers, leaders, and anyone who wants to understand the human mind. But what does this have to do with Ikigai? Everything. Living your Ikigai is living with awareness. It's making choices aligned with your essence and not under the influence of invisible triggers. Knowing the weapons of persuasion is not only a defense against manipulation, it is also a path of clarity, self-awareness, and ethics. Therefore, in this video, we will explore these 6 universal principles of persuasion and reveal how each of them can be both a trap and a powerful tool for living with purpose. Let's start with the first weapon, reciprocity, a principle so natural that we often confuse it with kindness. But are we exchanging courtesy for unconscious obedience? Imagine the following scene. You're walking on a sidewalk and someone hands you a free candy. Soon after, that same person asks for a small donation for a cause. Most people say yes. Not because they believe in the cause, not because they want to contribute, but because they feel indebted. This is the power of reciprocity. When someone gives us something, even something small, we feel we must return the favor. This principle is universal. It is so ingrained that it appears in almost all human cultures. Anthropologists say it is the foundation of civilization because it fosters trust, bonds, and exchange. But Cialdini shows us how this can be used against us. Salespeople offer freebies. Companies give out free samples. Manipulative people do favors expecting something in return. And, unknowingly, we say yes to maintain the appearance of fairness. But often that yes doesn't come from the heart. It comes from the automatic reflex to reciprocate. Here is the essential point. Are you constantly saying yes out of guilt, obligation, or politeness? When do you say yes to yourself? Ikigai invites us to live with presence and purpose. And this includes learning to give and receive without expecting exchanges. Conscious and generous reciprocity is a path to deep connection. But unconscious and automatic reciprocity is a shortcut to exhaustion. To live your Ikigai, you need to cultivate the inner freedom to give back with joy and the courage to say no with love. What have you done out of obligation that could be done with intention? Or what have you accepted from others out of fear of appearing ungrateful? When we become aware of reciprocity as a principle, we can make it a tool of light, not an invisible chain. The second principle of persuasion is commitment and consistency. How the desire to appear stable can keep us trapped in choices that no longer make sense. Imagine you sign a simple petition on the street supporting an environmental cause. A few days later, someone asks you for a donation for the same cause. Even if you're not very interested, you donate. Why? Because you have already made a prior commitment. And now, to feel consistent with who you were, you continue on the same path. Being consistent is a socially admired virtue. People who keep their word are seen as trustworthy, firm, strong. But there is a dark side to this. Cialdini reveals that our brains tend to repeat past decisions, even if circumstances have changed, even if that choice no longer makes sense. It is the phenomenon of emotional investment. The more time, energy, or identity we put into something, the harder it is to leave it behind, even when it hurts. Now think, how many times have you stayed in a job, relationship, or project just to avoid seeming unstable? How many times have you said, "But I've always been like this," even knowing that you are no longer the person you once were? Ikigai does not require consistency with the past. It requires consistency with your present truth. Living with purpose is having the courage to break away from who you were to align with who you are becoming. You owe nothing to your 5 years ago self. Your only true commitment is to what makes you vibrate today. The third principle of persuasion explored by Cialdini is social proof and how the crowd can be a beacon or an abyss. You walk into an empty restaurant and across the street see another restaurant packed. Which one do you choose? Most choose the second. Why? Because if everyone is going there, it must be good, right? This is the principle of social proof. We rely on others' choices as a shortcut for decision-making, especially when we are unsure or uninformed. Cialdini explains that we are deeply influenced by group behavior. This is an evolutionary mechanism. In the past, following the tribe was a matter of survival. Today, it manifests in other ways. We buy products with more reviews. We like what's trending. We change our opinion if it's too different from the majority. On social media, this effect intensifies. What is popular automatically seems more true or more valuable. But this mental shortcut also has a cost. When we follow the group blindly, we risk abandoning our authenticity. Ikigai is an inner journey. It is not dictated by trends or statistics. It is born from silence, introspection, listening to what truly matters to you, even if no one else is taking that path. And sometimes, living with purpose means having the courage not to follow the crowd. Social proof can be a compass or a blindfold. Use it to learn, observe, connect, but never as a substitute for your own conscience. The fourth weapon of persuasion is affection, or why we like those who resemble us. Have you ever bought something just because you liked the salesperson? Or voted for someone because they seemed friendly? If so, you experienced the power of affection. The fourth weapon of persuasion described by Robert Cialdini. Humans are emotional, and we tend to say yes much more easily to those we like. Cialdini identified that several factors increase our affection for someone, such as similarities to us, physical appearance, subtle compliments, and frequent contact. That's why brands use celebrities, or why charismatic salespeople sell more, or why people's leaders are so persuasive. But likability is not synonymous with truth. Not everything that attracts us is truly aligned with what's good for us. Affection can open doors, but without awareness, it can also lead us down paths unrelated to our Ikigai. How many times have you said yes to avoid displeasing? How many times have you accepted something just because you liked the person? Living with purpose isn't about being cold. It's about being kind and firm at the same time. It's about recognizing charisma without letting it replace your internal criterion of truth. Love the people, value relationships, but remember, your path is unique. And those who truly love you will want you to be free, not just pleasant. The fifth weapon of persuasion is authority. Why do we obey those who wear a lab coat, a suit, or a confident tone of voice? In a famous psychology experiment, ordinary participants were instructed to administer electric shocks to others under the guidance of a man in a white coat. Even when the screams seemed real, many continued. Why? Because the person giving orders appeared to be an authority. Cialdini reveals that we are trained from an early age to respect symbols of authority, titles, uniforms, posture, tone of voice. Obeying these figures can be helpful. They usually know more. But there is a risk, confusing authority with truth. A diploma does not guarantee wisdom. A suit does not guarantee ethics. An eloquent speech can hide dark intentions. And often, out of fear of seeming ignorant or disrespectful, we give up our own judgment. Ikigai invites us to inner autonomy. Trusting experts is important, but blindly trusting anyone with a title can lead us away from ourselves. Living with purpose requires discernment, listening, reflecting, questioning, even in the face of authority. After all, your life is not someone else's responsibility. It is your responsibility. Respect authority, but never silence your conscience. The true master does not demand obedience. He awakens autonomy. And on the path of Ikigai, authority is that which guides, not that which dominates. The last persuasion tool discussed by Cialdini is scarcity. Why do we feel so afraid of missing opportunities? Last units, limited spots. This opportunity ends today. How many times have you fallen for this type of advertisement? Maybe you didn't even want the product that much, but the simple fact that it could run out made it seem more valuable. This is the power of scarcity, the sixth and final persuasion weapon revealed by Robert Cialdini. Psychologically, we associate scarcity with value. If it's rare, it must be precious. If it's limited, it must be desired. This makes sense in some contexts, like natural resources, time, or health. But when applied in marketing strategies, relationships, or hasty decisions, this trigger can cloud our clarity. We make decisions out of fear of losing, not out of genuine desire to gain. And in this fear, we often lose connection with ourselves. Living with Ikigai is recognizing time as precious, but not as a race. It is understanding that not everything is urgent or important. It is knowing that you don't need to grasp everything that appears. You only need to say yes to what aligns with your essence. Scarcity can motivate you, but only purpose will sustain you on the path. 6 weapons, 6 invisible forces, 6 mental triggers that shape human decisions every day. Cialdini showed us how susceptible we are to influence. But Ikigai reminds us of something even more powerful. We are conscious. We can observe our impulses, choose with clarity, act ethically, and live with purpose, even in a world of constant persuasion. Now that you know these weapons, how do you intend to use them? To manipulate, to protect yourself, or to communicate truthfully and live with coherence? If you want to continue on this journey of self-discovery and purpose, subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, share this video with someone seeking inner freedom, and like the video so it reaches more people. Your Ikigai begins when you stop reacting automatically and start living with intention. Until the next video.